Imagine, for a second, a world without chocolate. No candy bars at the checkout line, no warm brownies on a rainy afternoon, no heart-shaped boxes on Valentine's Day. For most of us, that sounds like a total nightmare. But for the vast majority of human history, that was the reality. However, if you were to travel back 3,000 years into the deep, emerald heart of the Central American rainforest, you'd find something that looks nothing like a Hershey's bar, yet was considered more valuable than gold. We're talking about a substance so powerful it was used as currency, a drink so sacred it was offered to the gods, and a culinary mystery that took thousands of years to evolve into the sweet treat we know today. This isn't just a story about food, it's a story of empire, ritual, secret recipes, and a global obsession that changed the world. Grab a snack, hopefully a chocolatey one, because we are going back to the very beginning. This is the epic 5,000-year journey of the food of the gods. For a long time, historians believe that chocolate's story began with the ancient civilizations of Mexico, but recent archaeological breakthroughs have completely rewritten the script. In 2018, researchers found traces of cacao on pottery in the highlands of Ecuador, dating back over 5,300 years. This belonged to the Mayo Chinchipe culture. It turns out, humans were obsessed with the cacao tree, Theobroma cacao, much earlier than we ever imagined. But back then, they weren't eating the beans. They were likely enjoying the sweet, pulpy fruit that surrounds them, perhaps even fermenting it into a potent, boozy cacao wine. As the plant migrated north into Mesoamerica, it met the Olmecs, the mother culture of the region. This is where the word cacao likely originated from the Olmec word cacao. But it was the Maya who truly elevated chocolate to a divine status. For the Maya, chocolate wasn't a dessert. It was a life force. They believed cacao was discovered by the gods in a mountain and given to humans as a gift. If you walked into a Mayan city in 600 AD, you wouldn't see people munching on chocolate bars. Instead, you'd see them preparing a drink called Time's Exo Collet, which literally means bitter water. They would take the cacao beans, ferment them, dry them, roast them, and grind them into a paste. Then, they'd mix that paste with water, chili peppers, cornmeal, and local spices. But the most important part? The foam. The Maya would pour the liquid back and forth between two vessels from a great height to create a thick, velvety foam. To them, the foam was the most sacred part of the drink, containing the very essence of the plant's power. They drank it at weddings, at funerals, and during religious ceremonies. It was the ultimate social lubricant. And here's a fun fact. The Maya didn't just drink their chocolate hot. They enjoyed it at various temperatures, often as a thick, savory gruel. Can you imagine a spicy, bitter, cold chocolate soup? It's a far cry from a Starbucks mocha. As the Mayan civilization declined and the Aztecs rose to power in the 14th century, chocolate took on an even more intense role. Because the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, modern-day Mexico City, was located in a high, cool climate where cacao trees couldn't grow, the beans had to be imported from hundreds of miles away. This made cacao incredibly rare and expensive. It became the official currency of the Aztec Empire. Think about that next time you're reaching for a handful of chocolate chips. You're essentially eating money. The Aztecs were so serious about this currency that they even had to deal with counterfeiters. Some chocolate criminals would take empty cacao husks and fill them with dirt or grey clay to trick unsuspecting traders. The most famous chocolate lover in history was undoubtedly the Aztec Emperor Montezuma II. Legend has it that he drank up to 50 golden goblets of chocolate every single day to increase his vigor. When he finished a cup, he would toss the golden vessel into a lake rather than wash it. That's how wealthy he was. But the Aztec version of chocolate was still a world away from ours. It was served cold, dyed red with annatto seeds to look like blood, and was deeply tied to the ritual of human sacrifice. It was a drink for warriors and elite priests, a beverage of power and blood. Everything changed in 1502. Christopher Columbus, on his fourth and final voyage to the New World, intercepted a Mayan trading canoe filled with mysterious brown beans. His son, Ferdinand, later wrote that the locals seemed to treat these beans with immense reverence, scrambling to pick up any that fell as if they were eyes. But Columbus, focused on finding a route to Asia, didn't see the value. He thought they were some kind of shriveled almond. He missed the chance to be the man who brought chocolate to Europe. That honor fell to Hernán Cortés, the conquistador who led the destruction of the Aztec Empire. When Cortés arrived at Montezuma's court in 1519, he was treated to the emperor's favorite beverage. Cortés was a businessman at heart. He noticed that the Aztecs traded these beans for everything. He famously wrote to King Charles V of Spain, saying that a single cup of this precious drink permits a man to walk for a whole day without food. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, the Spanish began shipping cacao back to Europe. But at first, the Spanish didn't know what to do with it. The original recipe was too bitter, too spicy, and too alien for the European palate. It was described by one Italian traveler as a drink for pigs. But then, someone, likely Spanish monks who were experts in herbal medicine, had a stroke of genius. They took the basic Aztec recipe but swapped the chili peppers for sugar from the Caribbean, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, and vanilla from Mexico. They served it hot. Suddenly, the drink for pigs became an overnight sensation among the Spanish elite. Spain was so obsessed with their new discovery that they kept the recipe a state secret for nearly 100 years. They didn't want the rest of Europe to get a taste of their black gold. But secrets like that don't stay hidden forever. In 1615, the secret leaked out in the most romantic way possible. Anne of Austria, the daughter of the Spanish king, married King Louis XIII of France. As a wedding gift, she brought the Spanish court's love for chocolate to the French palaces of Versailles. She even had her own personal chocolate maker as part of her royal entourage. By the mid-1600s, chocolate had crossed the English Channel. In London, chocolate houses began to pop up, rivaling the famous coffee houses. These were the elite social clubs of the day, places where the wealthy and the intellectual would gather to sip expensive chocolate, gamble, and discuss the news of the day. But even then, chocolate was still a luxury for the 1%. It was labor-intensive to produce, hand-ground by servants or slaves, and the ingredients were incredibly expensive. A pound of chocolate could cost a worker a week's wages. At this point in history, chocolate was still strictly a liquid. The idea of a chocolate bar didn't even exist yet. It was a high-status, frothy, hot beverage enjoyed in gilded salons. But the world was about to change. The Industrial Revolution was looming on the horizon, and a few visionary inventors were about to take chocolate out of the golden cups of the elite and put it into the hands of the masses. We are about to see how a bitter bean from the jungle became a global industrial powerhouse. So, we've arrived at the 19th century. Up until this point, if you wanted chocolate, you were drinking it. And to be honest, it wasn't always a pleasant experience. Because cacao beans are naturally about 50% fat, what we call cocoa butter, the drink was often oily, heavy, and frankly, a bit hard on the stomach. If you let your cup sit for a minute, a layer of yellow grease would float to the top. Not exactly the food of the gods you'd expect, right? Enter the year 1828, and a Dutch chemist named Casparus van Houten. This man changed everything with a single invention, the cocoa press. Van Houten's machine did something revolutionary. It squeezed the roasted cacao beans with immense pressure, separating the fatty cocoa butter from the solid material. What was left behind was a dry cake that could be pulverized into a fine powder. This is what we now know as Dutch processed cocoa. By treating this powder with alkaline salts, Van Houten made it easier to mix with water and gave it a milder, darker flavor. But here's the kicker. Now that they had all this leftover, extracted cocoa butter, they didn't know what to do with it. That is, until 1847, when a British chocolate maker named Joseph Fry had a eureka moment. He realized that if you took that cocoa powder and mixed it back together with the melted cocoa butter and some sugar, you didn't get a drink, you got a paste that could be molded. Fry created the world's first solid chocolate bar. It wasn't the smooth, creamy Hershey's or Cadbury bar you're thinking of. It was likely a bit grainy and quite bitter, but it was a massive turning point. Chocolate was no longer just a beverage. It was a portable, snackable food. While the British were busy molding bars, the Swiss were about to take things to a whole new level of luxury. If you're a fan of milk chocolate, you owe a debt of gratitude to two neighbors in Vevey, Switzerland, Daniel Peter and Henri Nestlé. For years, people tried to make milk chocolate, but they kept failing. Why? Because milk is mostly water, and as any baker will tell you, water and chocolate are mortal enemies. If you add liquid milk to chocolate, it seizes up into a clumpy, ruined mess. In 1875, Peter used a new invention from his neighbor Nestlé condensed milk. Because the water had been removed, it could be blended seamlessly into the cacao. Suddenly, milk chocolate was born. It was smoother, sweeter, and way more shelf-stable than anything that had come before. But wait, we're still missing that melt-in-your-mouth texture. Early chocolate was still pretty gritty. You had to chew it. That changed in 1879, thanks to a happy accident by Rodolphe Lindt. Legend has it that Lindt accidentally left his mixing machine running over an entire weekend. When he returned to his factory on Monday morning, he expected the batch to be ruined. Instead, he found a vat of chocolate that was silky, shiny, and smelled incredible. The friction and heat from the long mixing process, now called conching, had broken down the particles to a microscopic level and evaporated the bitter acids. By the turn of the 20th century, companies like Milton Hershey in America were taking these European techniques and applying them to massive assembly lines. Hershey's goal was to make milk chocolate so cheap that everyone could afford it, not just the wealthy. He even built an entire town around his factory. This was the moment chocolate truly became the world's favorite treat. Now, before we wrap up this 4,000-year saga, let's look at where chocolate stands today. It's a $100 billion a year industry, but it's full of surprises. First, a few did-you-know facts to impress your friends at your next dinner party. Did you know that chocolate was actually used as a form of medicine in the 1700s? Doctors prescribed it for everything from chest pains to depression. And they might have been onto something. Modern science shows that dark chocolate is packed with flavanols that can improve heart health and boost brain function. Also, have you ever wondered why chocolate makes you feel, well, happy? It contains a compound called phenylethylamine, the same chemical your brain releases when you're falling in love. No wonder we give it out on Valentine's Day. But we have to talk about the serious side too. The modern day of chocolate has a complicated shadow. Today, about 70% of the world's cacao comes from West Africa, specifically the Ivory Coast and Ghana. While we enjoy our cheap candy bars, the farmers growing the beans often live in extreme poverty, sometimes earning less than $1 a day. Issues like deforestation and unethical labor practices are real challenges the industry is facing right now. When you're at the grocery store, have you noticed labels like Fair Trade or Rainforest Alliance? Those aren't just marketing, they're part of a modern movement to ensure that the food of the gods doesn't come at a hellish cost to the people who grow it. Choosing ethically sourced chocolate is one way we can ensure this history continues sustainably. From a bitter, spicy drink shared by ancient kings in the rainforest to a global industrial phenomenon, the journey of chocolate is a mirror of human history itself. It's a story of exploration, invention, luxury, and eventually, democratization. The next time you unwrap a bar or take a sip of cocoa, think about those 4,000 years of heritage packed into that single bite. Think about the Mayan priests, the Spanish explorers, the Dutch chemists, and the West African farmers. You aren't just eating candy, you're consuming a piece of human civilization. So, I have to ask, what's your go-to chocolate? Are you a purist who loves 80% dark? Or do you have a secret weakness for a classic milk chocolate bar? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the sweet side of history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more tasty histories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.